Commander Vex had been patrolling the outer borders of Keltharian space for 15 years. In all that time, he had never seen anything that worried him. The Keltharian Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Everyone knew this. Every species, every world, every ship that traveled through space was recorded in the Great Archives. There were no surprises anymore. That morning started like any other. Vex sat in his command chair on the bridge of his destroyer, drinking his morning stimulant and reviewing the overnight sensor reports. His crew moved quietly through their duties. The 3 ships under his command moved in perfect formation through the emptiness of Sector 447. Then the alarm sounded. Lieutenant Cass looked up from her sensor station, her face confused. "Commander, I have an unidentified contact. Distance 12,000 kilometers. It just appeared on our screens." Vex set down his drink and leaned forward. "Just appeared? What do you mean, just appeared?" "Sir, there was nothing there one moment and then there was. No jump signature. No engine trail. It's just there. This was unusual but not impossible. Perhaps a sensor glitch or a small ship with stealth technology. Vex had dealt with smugglers before. What's the ship classification?" Cass worked her controls, her confusion growing. "Unknown, sir. The computer can't identify it. The design doesn't match anything in our database. The energy signature is completely foreign." Now Vex was interested. He stood and walked to the sensor station, looking at the readings himself. The ship was small, perhaps the size of a light cruiser. Its hull configuration was strange, with unusual angles and what looked like exposed equipment pods. The energy readings coming from it made no sense. It was using power, lots of it, but not in any pattern the Keltharian systems recognized. "Open a communication channel. Standard hail, all frequencies." The communications officer worked his panel. "Channel open, sir." Broadcasting now, they waited. There was no response. The strange ship continued on its course, moving slowly through space as if it had nowhere important to be. Vex felt a small worry form in his mind. Ships that didn't respond to hails were either broken or hostile. Send a message on the emergency band. Inform them they are in Keltharian space and must identify themselves immediately. Again, nothing. The alien ship simply continued its journey. "Sir, what should we do?" Cass asked. Vex made his decision. Standing Imperial protocol was clear. Unidentified vessels that refused to communicate were to be treated as potential threats. Fire a warning shot, 50 meters off their bow. Maybe that will get their attention. The weapons officer targeted the space ahead of the unknown ship and fired. A bright pulse of energy shot through the darkness and exploded in a brilliant flash exactly where it was aimed. The alien ship stopped moving. For a moment, Vex thought they had succeeded. Then everything went wrong. The unknown ship rotated slightly, bringing what looked like a single weapon to face them. There was no charging sound, no visible power buildup that their sensors could detect, just a brief flash of light that seemed to bend space itself. The destroyer to Vex's right simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, 300 crew members going about their duties. The next moment there was nothing but an expanding cloud of gas and debris. Not even time to send a distress call. "Evasive maneuvers," Vex shouted, but it was too late. The alien ship fired again. His second destroyer suffered the same fate. 300 more lives gone in an instant. Vex's own ship turned hard, engines screaming as they tried to escape. "Jump drive now. Get us out of here."
"Charging, sir."
30 seconds. 30 seconds felt like an eternity. Vex watched his screen, expecting another shot that would end his life. But it never came. The alien ship simply rotated back to its original heading and continued on its way, as if nothing had happened, as if destroying 2 military vessels was not even worth slowing down for. The jump drive engaged and Vex's ship fled back toward Imperial space. In his 15 years of service, Vex had never been so terrified. 600 of his people were dead, killed by a ship that wasn't supposed to exist. The moment they arrived at the nearest military station, Vex sent his report directly to High Command. Within hours, Admiral Cross received the message. Cross was a veteran of 40 years, a warrior who had fought in the last Great War against the Fen Republic. He read Vex's report with growing anger. An unknown ship had destroyed Imperial vessels without warning. This could not stand. The Empire's strength was built on fear and respect. If word spread that some random ship could attack them with impunity, it would encourage every rebellious faction and minor species to try their luck. Cross assembled Battle Group 7 within 2 days. 40 warships, including heavy cruisers and battleships, gathered at the rally point. This was enough firepower to conquer a small planet. Surely it would be enough to handle one mysterious ship. They jumped to Sector 447 and began scanning for the intruder. It didn't take long to find it. The alien ship was exactly where Vex had last seen it, moving slowly through space, still conducting whatever strange business had brought it here. Cross opened a channel himself. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Cross of the Keltharian Imperial Fleet. You have attacked our ships without provocation. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply immediately, you will be destroyed. The response came in perfect Keltharian language, the accent flawless, the words clear. A male voice calm and unbothered. Admiral, your ships fired first. We defended ourselves. We have no interest in conflict with you. Leave this area and there will be no further trouble. Cross felt his face heat with rage. This ship, this thing that had no right to even exist, was telling him to leave? Giving him orders? You dare? I have 40 warships. You are one small vessel. Surrender now or face the consequences. There was a pause. Then the voice spoke again, and Cross thought he heard something like sadness in it. We warned you. We tried to avoid this. What happens next is your choice. All ships fire at will. Destroy that vessel. 40 warships opened fire at once. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything in their arsenal launched toward the unknown ship. It should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something rippled around its hull, a kind of barrier that caught every shot and simply absorbed it. Then the alien ship began to fire back. Not wildly, not in panic. With careful, precise shots that found their targets with impossible accuracy. One by one, the ships of Battle Group 7 began to die. Their shields, built to withstand any known weapon, failed as if they weren't even there. Their armor, forged from the strongest metals in the Empire, melted like ice under a summer sun. Cross watched his fleet being systematically dismantled. Ships that had served the Empire for decades, crews that had trained their entire lives, all of it meaningless against this impossible enemy. He ordered a retreat, but the alien ship was faster. It moved between his vessels, firing with that same terrible precision. In 4 minutes it was over. 39 ships destroyed. Only a single scout vessel escaped, its pilot making a desperate jump the moment he saw the battle turning. That pilot would carry the news back to the Imperial core, news that would shake the foundations of Keltharian power. Something was out there in the darkness, something not in their records, something not afraid of them, and the Empire had no idea what to do about it. The emergency session of the Keltharian High Command began at midnight. Every senior military officer, every member of the ruling council, and every chief archivist gathered in the great chamber beneath the Imperial Palace. The room was built to hold 200 people, but tonight it felt crowded and hot with tension. Admiral Cross stood at the center, his uniform torn and burned from his escape pod landing. He was the highest-ranking survivor of Battle Group 7. His voice was hoarse as he described what had happened. Some of the council members looked skeptical. 40 ships destroyed by one vessel? It sounded impossible. I watched it happen, Cross said, his hands shaking. I gave the order to fire. We hit it with everything we had. It didn't even scratch the hull. Then it fired back and my ships just came apart. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Defense Minister Roll stood up, his face angry. How is this possible? We have the most advanced military in known space. Our technology comes from 3,000 years of conquest and study. How can some unknown ship be superior to us? That question brought Scholar Primus Yell to her feet. She was old. Even by Keltharian standards, her scales faded to a pale gray. But her mind was sharp, and she led the archivists, the keepers of all Imperial knowledge. That is what we must discover. I request permission to access all records related to Sector 447 and the surrounding regions. Emperor Thrain, sitting on his raised throne, nodded slowly. He looked tired, older than his 60 years. Granted. Find out what we're dealing with. I want answers by morning. Yell bowed and left the chamber, taking 6 of her best researchers with her. They descended into the archives, a vast underground complex where every piece of information gathered by the Empire over millennia was stored. The physical records alone filled chambers the size of small cities. The digital databases were even larger, They began with Sector 447. The record showed it had been surveyed twice, once 800 years ago and again 200 years ago. Both surveys marked it as empty space. No planets, no resources, nothing of value. Ships rarely went there because there was no reason to. But one researcher, a young female named Tess, found something odd. Scholar Primus, look at this. 200 years ago, automated monitoring stations in Sector 447 recorded unusual quantum distortions. Multiple events over a 6-month period. Yell studied the report. Quantum distortions could mean many things. Ships entering or leaving jump space created them. So did certain natural phenomena. What was the conclusion? The stations classified them as sensor errors. The distortions didn't match any known patterns, so they were dismissed as equipment malfunction. Yell felt a chill run through her. Equipment malfunction. How convenient. She pulled up more records, expanding the search to include all reports from that time period and region. Something else appeared. Reports from several minor species near the frontier mentioned rumors of newcomers, beings who had arrived from beyond explored space, from regions no one had charted. These reports were scattered and inconsistent. Some described the newcomers as peaceful traders. Others said they were warriors. A few mentioned technology that seemed unusual, power sources that didn't match anything familiar. But all of these reports had been filed under speculation and rumor. No one had investigated further. They were there, Yell said quietly. 200 years ago they arrived and we never noticed. We dismissed the evidence because it didn't fit what we expected to see. Meanwhile, far away in Sector 447, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room aboard the exploration ship Liberty. He was reviewing the report his tactical officer had prepared about their encounter with the alien vessels. The whole situation bothered him. Liberty was an exploration ship, not a warship. Its mission was to survey unknown regions, collect data, and make peaceful contact with any civilizations they discovered. The crew of 150 were scientists, engineers, and support staff. They had defensive weapons because space could be dangerous, but Morrison had never wanted to use them. Captain, you had no choice, Chief Engineer Lisa Grant said. She sat across from him, her tablet showing power consumption data. Those ships fired first. You gave them every chance to back down. I know, Morrison said, but we just killed thousands of people. That sits heavy. It sits heavy because you're a good man, but if you hadn't defended the ship, we'd all be dead. Lisa pulled up another screen. What worries me is how much power the defensive systems used. We're down to 70% reserves. If we face another fleet that size, we might not have enough energy to fight them off. Morrison made a decision. Send a full report back to Earth Command via quantum relay. Include everything, the alien ships, their weapons, our response, casualty estimates. Command needs to know there's an aggressive spacefaring civilization out here. That report will take 8 months to reach Earth, Lisa reminded him. I know, but they need to know what we found. Morrison stood and walked to the window of his ready room. Outside, stars shone in the eternal darkness. Do we have any idea who they were? Lieutenant Ben Hayes in Xenology has been analyzing their ship designs and communication attempts. He says they're definitely an advanced civilization, possibly an empire based on how formally they spoke. But we have nothing about them in our databases. This made sense to Morrison. Humanity had only been exploring deep space for 200 years. Earth and its 30 colony worlds occupied a relatively small region of the galaxy. There was so much they hadn't seen yet, so many civilizations they hadn't met. It was entirely possible that beyond their explored space, vast empires existed that had never heard of humans. Tell Hayes to keep analyzing. If they come back, I want to know as much about them as possible. They came back, but not with warships. 3 days after the battle, a single small vessel appeared on Liberty's sensors. It approached slowly, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The message was simple and repeated in dozens of languages. Unknown vessel, I am First Contact Envoy Mira of the Keltharian Empire. I come in peace. I request dialogue. Please respond. Morrison looked at Ben Hayes, who had come to the bridge. What do you think? Hayes studied the approaching ship. It's unarmed, or at least its weapons are powered down. If this is a trap, it's an elaborate one. But that message mentions the Keltharian Empire. That might be who we fought. Morrison thought about it. They could run. They could ignore the message. Or they could take a chance on peace. Open a channel. Let's see what they want. The view screen activated, showing a Keltharian for the first time. Mira was tall and thin, covered in fine scales that shimmered green and blue. Her face was elongated with large eyes that seemed to study everything at once. When she spoke, her voice was melodic and careful. "Thank you for responding. I am Envoy Mira. I have been sent to open communication with your people. We need to understand what happened and why." Morrison introduced himself and gave a brief summary. "Your ships entered this sector and began scanning. When we asked them to identify themselves, they fired on us. We defended ourselves. We didn't want conflict, but we won't accept being attacked without response." Mira's expression was hard to read, but she seemed troubled. "Our commanders believed you were smugglers or pirates. When you destroyed the patrol ships, they sent a battle group to eliminate what they saw as a threat. They did not expect your level of technology." "We're not pirates," Morrison said firmly. "We're explorers from a civilization you've apparently never encountered. We come from a region of space your people haven't charted." "That's impossible," Mira said, though she sounded uncertain. "The Keltharian Empire has explored this entire region. We have records going back thousands of years." Morrison pulled up a star chart and transmitted it to Mira's ship. "This is human space. 28 colony worlds on Earth, our home planet. We've been a spacefaring species for 2 centuries. We didn't know about your empire because our territory is separated from yours by a massive dust cloud that disrupts long-range sensors." Mira studied the chart for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were wide. "This region has always appeared empty to our sensors. We thought it was just dead space. But you're saying there's an entire civilization there?" "Not just there. We've been expanding, exploring. Your Sector 447 is at the edge of what we consider the frontier. We're here looking for new worlds, new knowledge. And you possess weapons that can destroy our warships with ease." Morrison chose his words carefully. "We have the ability to defend ourselves. Whether we're more powerful than you overall, I don't know. We've never tested that, and I hope we never have to." Mira was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that would change everything. "Captain Morrison, does your civilization want war with the Keltharian Empire?" "No," Morrison said immediately. "We want to explore, to learn, to grow. We'll defend ourselves if attacked, but we're not conquerors. We prefer peace. I will take your words back to Emperor Thrain. I hope he listens." Emperor Thrain sat in his private chambers reading Envoy Mira's report for the 3rd time. Each reading made him feel older and more uncertain. In all his 30 years of rule, he had never faced anything like this. The Keltharian Empire was supposed to be supreme. Every species they encountered either joined willingly or was conquered. There were no equals, no rivals. Now there were humans, a species that came from nowhere, with technology that made Imperial warships look like toys. And according to Mira, they claimed to want peace. Thrain didn't know if he believed that. A knock at his door brought him back to the present. "Enter." Grand Admiral Zek strode in, his military decorations gleaming on his chest. He was younger than Thrain, strong and confident. Behind him came Scholar Primus Yell, moving slowly with her walking staff. The two represented the split in Thrain's government. "Military strength versus wisdom and knowledge, Your Majesty," Zek said, bowing briefly. "I've read the envoy's report. These humans are clearly a threat that must be dealt with immediately." "They said they want peace," Thrain replied. "Of course they did. It's what anyone would say when outnumbered. But think about it, Your Majesty. One of their exploration ships destroyed Battle Group 7. An exploration ship. What could their actual military do? If we give them time to prepare to learn about us, they could become unstoppable." Yell tapped her staff on the floor. "Grand Admiral, that thinking is what led to the loss of Battle Group 7 in the first place. We attacked without understanding what we faced." "I'm not suggesting we attack blindly," Zek said. "I'm suggesting we demonstrate strength before they do. Show them that while they may have won a battle, the Empire can bring force they cannot imagine. Make them negotiate from a position of weakness." Thrain rubbed his temples. "Scholar Primus, what do you think?" "I think we are afraid," Yell said bluntly. "For 3,000 years we have been the dominant power. Now we've discovered we are not alone at the top, and it terrifies us. But fear makes us stupid. If we attack these humans again and lose, we look weak. Every species in the Empire will see that we can be beaten. And if we do nothing, we look weak anyway," Zek countered. "Your Majesty, I'm not suggesting we exterminate them. Just a show of force. One strong strike against a military target. Show them we can hurt them too. Then we negotiate from a position of mutual respect, not from us cowering in fear." Thrain looked between them. Military action was risky, but Zek had a point. How could he negotiate with humans if they thought the Empire was helpless? What do you propose? Zek pulled up a holographic display showing the star chart Mira had obtained. The humans gave us their territory map. Here, this world called New Galveston. It's an industrial colony, lots of shipbuilding and manufacturing. I take the Third Fleet, jump in, make our demands. If they refuse, we destroy some orbital facilities. Nothing that kills civilians, just enough to show we can strike at them too. And if they fight back like they did before? Yell asked. Then we retreat. The Third Fleet has 300 ships, Your Majesty. Even if their technology is superior, surely we can survive long enough to make our point and leave. Thrain thought about it for a long time. Finally, he made his decision. Do it, but Admiral Zek, I want minimal casualties. This is about demonstrating power, not slaughter. If they respond with overwhelming force, you retreat immediately. Understood? Yes, Your Majesty. Zek saluted and left quickly, probably afraid Thrain would change his mind. When he was gone, Yell shook her head sadly. This is a mistake. Maybe, Thrain said. But I can't show weakness, not now. The Empire is watching. The Third Fleet assembled over the next week. 300 warships, the largest battle group the Empire had gathered in 50 years. Grand Admiral Zek stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion and felt proud. This fleet could conquer entire star systems. Surely it could handle whatever the humans had. They jumped into human space using the coordinates from Mira's report. The fleet emerged near New Galveston, a blue and green world surrounded by orbital stations and industrial platforms. Dozens of human ships moved between the stations, cargo vessels and transports going about their business. Zek opened a communication channel, broadcasting to the entire system. Attention, human vessels. This is Grand Admiral Zek of the Keltharian Imperial Third Fleet. You have technology that threatens the stability of this region. You will agree to submit to Imperial authority and share your technology, or we will demonstrate the consequences of refusal. The response came from a military station orbiting the planet. A human woman appeared on the screen wearing a dark uniform with rank insignia. Her hair was pulled back and her eyes were hard. This is Rear Admiral Claire Bennett of the Earth Defense Force, 6th Fleet. You have entered human territory without permission and are making demands. You have exactly one chance to turn around and leave. Zek laughed. Admiral Bennett, I have 300 warships. I count 20 human vessels in this system. You cannot win this fight. You're assuming we need more ships, Bennett said calmly. You're making the same mistake your last 2 battle groups made. Leave now, or we will remove you. Zek's pride wouldn't allow retreat, not in front of his entire fleet. Very well. You leave me no choice. He cut the connection and turned to his weapons officer. Target that mining station to our port side. Fire a warning shot. Destroy it. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, that station might have workers on it. It's automated. Our scans show no life signs. Fire. A pulse of energy lanced out from Eternal Dominion and struck the mining station. It exploded in a ball of fire, debris spinning away into space. Zek turned back to the communication screen. That is a warning. Next, we target something more valuable. Surrender now. Admiral Bennett's face showed no emotion. You just made the worst decision of your life. All ships weapons-free. Show them what happens when you threaten human territory. The 20 human ships in the system moved with sudden speed. They were smaller than Keltharian vessels, but they moved like fighters, fast and agile. And when they fired, Zek understood too late that he had made a terrible mistake. The weapons were like nothing the Keltharians had seen before. Beams of energy that seemed to warp space itself, torpedoes that phased through shields as if they weren't there. One moment Zek's fleet was in formation, ready for battle. The next moment ships were dying. Zek watched in horror as a heavy cruiser to his left simply folded in on itself, crushed by what looked like a gravitational anomaly. A battleship tried to return fire, only to have its shots absorbed by some kind of barrier around the human ship. Then the human vessel fired back and the battleship split in half. All ships evasive maneuvers. Return fire! Zek shouted, but his orders came too late. The human ships moved through his fleet like predators among prey. They targeted weapon systems first, crippling ships before destroying them. It was methodical, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. Sir, we've lost 40 ships in the first minute, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Shields are ineffective. Armor is being penetrated like it's paper. How is this possible? Zek demanded. These weapons shouldn't exist. His science officer had an answer, though it came too late to help. Sir, they're using principles of quantum mechanics we've never explored. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles. These weapons manipulate gravity and quantum states. Our defenses simply don't work against them. Zek realized he was going to die. His flagship shuddered as human weapons found their mark. Systems began failing all around him. All ships, retreat! Jump to any safe coordinates. Get out now. The Third Fleet tried to flee. Ships broke formation and jumped in random directions, desperate to escape the slaughter. Some made it. Most didn't. The human ships pursued, destroying vessels as they tried to charge their jump drives. It was chaos and death, and it lasted only 10 minutes. When it was over, only 37 ships of the Third Fleet survived. 263 warships destroyed, tens of thousands of crew members dead. And Grand Admiral Zek's flagship was a burning wreck, life support failing. The Admiral himself, barely alive in an escape pod picked up by a fleeing destroyer. Admiral Claire Bennett stood on her command deck and watched the Keltharian ships flee. Her face was grim. Casualty report. 1 freighter damaged when debris hit it, ma'am. No deaths, all military vessels intact. Bennett nodded slowly. Send a message to Earth Command. The Keltharians just launched an attack on New Galveston. We repelled them, but this situation is escalating. We need diplomatic intervention immediately. Yes, ma'am. Her communications officer paused. Ma'am, do you think they'll try again? Bennett looked at the debris field where hundreds of alien ships had been. I don't know, but we just showed them what happens when you threaten human worlds. Either they'll learn from this or we'll be at war. The news of the Third Fleet's destruction reached the Imperial Core within hours. Emperor Thrain received the report while eating his evening meal. He dropped his utensils and read the message 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. 300 ships, gone. Another 60,000 dead. The Empire was in chaos by morning. News spread through every world, every station, every corner of Imperial space. The Keltharian military, undefeated for centuries, had been crushed twice by an enemy no one had known existed. Citizens began to panic. If the mighty fleet could be destroyed so easily, what protected them? Governor Pell of the Outer Rim world sent a message demanding explanations. Why had the Emperor attacked these humans? What threat did they pose? Other governors echoed his concerns. Some began quietly reinforcing their local defense forces, preparing for the possibility that humans might invade. Within the military, the response was even more divided. Some admirals called for total mobilization, gathering every warship in the Empire for one massive assault on human space. Others argued for immediate peace negotiations before more lives were lost. Several refused to believe the reports, claiming they must be exaggerated or false. Admiral Zek recovered from his injuries in a military hospital. When officers came to interview him, he could barely speak. The confident warrior who had led the Third Fleet was gone, replaced by a broken man who flinched at sudden sounds. They're too strong, he whispered. Everything we have is useless against them. Our weapons, our shields, our tactics. It means nothing to them. Scholar Primus Yell worked day and night in the archives trying to understand how this had happened. She brought together the Empire's best scientists, engineers, and theorists. Together they studied every piece of data collected from the encounters with human ships. The answer, when it came, was humbling. A young physicist named Corso made the breakthrough. He stood before a gathered group of experts and explained what he had discovered. The problem is that we and the humans developed technology along completely different paths. 3,000 years ago, our scientists made certain assumptions about physics that seemed correct. We built everything based on those assumptions. But the humans made different assumptions, Yell asked. Not exactly, Corso said. They explored areas of physics we never thought to investigate. Quantum manipulation, gravitational field generation. They used principles we always dismissed as impractical or impossible. And because we never developed defenses against those principles, we're vulnerable to them. Another scientist, an older male named Vret, shook his head. But surely our technology is superior in some ways. It is, Corso confirmed. Our faster-than-light drives are more efficient than theirs. Our energy generation is more stable. Our sensor systems can detect things theirs cannot. But in terms of raw destructive power and defensive capabilities, they've far surpassed us. Yell absorbed this information. So neither side is absolutely superior. We're just different. Exactly. In a prolonged war, both sides would suffer terribly. They could destroy our fleets, but we could strike at their supply lines, their colonies. It would be devastation for everyone involved. Emperor Thrain called an emergency council meeting. Every important voice in the Empire gathered in the Great Chamber once more. This time the mood was different. Before there had been anger and pride. Now there was fear. Defense Minister Roll spoke first. Your Majesty, we cannot allow this situation to continue. The humans have humiliated us. If we don't respond, the Empire will fall apart. Already we're seeing signs of unrest in the outer systems. Respond how? Thrain asked tiredly. We've attacked them twice. Twice we've been defeated. How many more lives should I throw away to satisfy pride? Then what do you suggest? Roll demanded. That we surrender? Accept human dominance? I suggest we stop treating this as a military problem, Yell said, standing slowly. Your Majesty, I have completed my analysis of human technology. They are not gods. They are not invincible. They simply developed along a different path than we did. In a war, both sides would bleed. But there is another option. Which is? Thrain asked. Peace. Real peace, not the kind where we demand submission. We treat the humans as equals, establish borders, begin diplomatic relations. We might even learn from each other. The chamber erupted in argument. Some supported Yell's proposal. Others saw it as weakness, as surrender. The debate raged for hours, voices raised in anger and fear. Finally, Thrain raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. I have been emperor for 30 years. In that time, I believed the Empire was the greatest civilization in the galaxy. I believed we were destined to rule all others. I was wrong. Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. An emperor admitting error was almost unheard of. We are not the greatest, Thrain continued. We are simply one civilization among many. The humans have shown us that. And yes, it is humbling. It hurts our pride. But pride has already cost us over 100,000 lives. How many more should die because we cannot accept the truth? He stood, his robes of office heavy on his shoulders. I will contact the human government directly. I will propose peace negotiations. And I will accept whatever diplomatic solution treats both our peoples with respect. Your Majesty, Defense Minister Roll said, his voice cold. If you do this, you will be seen as weak. There will be those who question your right to rule. Let them question, Thrain said. I would rather be seen as weak than send more of my people to die in a war we cannot win. The message was sent through official channels. Emperor Thrain of the Keltharian Empire formally requested communication with the government of Earth. The response came 2 days later. President John Matthews agreed to speak with him. The conversation was held via quantum communication link, real-time despite the vast distance. Thrain appeared on the screen in his formal robes. Matthews wore a simple suit, sitting in what looked like an ordinary office. He was older than Thrain expected, his hair gray, his face lined with years of responsibility. Emperor Thrain, Matthews said. His tone was neutral, neither warm nor hostile. I appreciate you reaching out, though I wish it hadn't taken 2 battles and over 100,000 deaths to get here. Thrain felt the rebuke, but accepted it. President Matthews, I made errors in judgment. I allowed pride and fear to guide my decisions. I sent military forces against your people without fully understanding the situation. Those mistakes cost many lives, both your people and mine. At least you can admit it, Matthews said. That's more than some leaders manage. So what do you want from this conversation? Peace, Thrain said simply. Real peace, not a ceasefire while we prepare for more war. I want to establish formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations. I want to agree on borders that both sides will respect, and I want to ensure that no more lives are lost because of misunderstanding and pride. Matthews studied him for a long moment. You understand that humanity will not accept being part of your empire. We're an independent civilization and we intend to stay that way. I understand, Thrain said. I'm not asking you to join us. I'm asking that we coexist, that we respect each other's territory and sovereignty. And what about the ships you destroyed in your first attack? The lives you took? Matthews asked. Thrain felt the weight of those deaths. I cannot bring them back, but I can offer reparations to their families. I can ensure that the Empire takes responsibility for what happened. And I can promise it will never happen again. Matthews leaned back in his chair. My military advisors tell me we could win a war with your empire, that we have the technology to defend ourselves and even strike at your territory if we chose to. But I've seen enough war in my lifetime. I'm willing to discuss peace, but it needs to be real peace. No tricks, no hidden agendas. Agreed, Thrain said. How do you suggest we proceed? We need neutral ground for negotiations, somewhere neither of our militaries control, and we need representatives both sides can trust to work out the details. Matthews paused. I'm told your envoy Mira and our captain Jake Morrison have already met and established communication. What if we put them in charge of a joint commission to work out the framework for a peace agreement? Thrain considered this. Mira was diplomatic and intelligent. If Morrison was similar, they might actually succeed. I accept your proposal. Where should these negotiations take place? There's a region of space between our territories, Matthews said. Neutral ground. We can build a temporary station there. Give both sides time to present their positions and work out the details. Agreed, Thrain said. I will send Envoy Mira with full authority to negotiate on behalf of the Empire. I assume you'll do the same with Captain Morrison? I will, Matthews confirmed. Emperor Thrain, I hope this works. Because if it doesn't, the alternative is a war neither of our civilizations wants. I hope so too, President Matthews. I truly do. The neutral station took 3 weeks to build. Human and Keltharian construction teams worked on opposite ends, carefully avoiding direct contact while both sides remained nervous and suspicious. The station was simple, just a series of connected modules with meeting rooms, living quarters, and communication facilities. It floated in empty space, equidistant from both human and Keltharian territory. Captain Jake Morrison arrived first, his ship Liberty escorted by 2 human destroyers that remained at a respectful distance. He felt strange being chosen for this role. He was an explorer, not a diplomat, but President Matthews had been clear. Morrison had handled the first contact well, and more importantly, the Keltharians already knew him. That familiarity might help bridge the gap. Envoy Mira arrived a day later, her small diplomatic vessel alone and unarmed. When she boarded the station, Morrison was there to greet her. They studied each other in person for the first time. Mira was taller than Morrison expected, her scales catching the station's light in patterns of green and blue. Her large eyes were intelligent and cautious. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice carrying that melodic quality he remembered. Thank you for agreeing to this. Envoy Mira, Morrison replied. I hope we can find a solution that works for both our peoples. They walked together to the main conference room. It had been designed with both species in mind. The furniture could adjust for different body types. The temperature and atmosphere were set to a comfortable compromise. A large holographic display occupied one wall, ready to show star charts and data. For the first few days, they simply talked. Not about borders or treaties, but about their civilizations. Mira described the Keltharian Empire, its 3,000-year history, its hundreds of member species. She spoke of art and culture, of the great achievements her people were proud of. But she also spoke honestly about the Empire's darker side, the conquests, the species forced to join against their will. We always believed we were bringing civilization to primitive worlds, Mira said quietly. We told ourselves that our rule was benevolent, that everyone was better off under imperial guidance. Now I wonder if that was just a story we told ourselves to justify domination. Morrison shared his own history. He talked about Earth, about humanity's long struggle to reach the stars. He described the colony worlds, each one different, each one reflecting a different aspect of human culture. He was honest about humanity's past too, the wars, the mistakes, the times when humans had hurt each other. We're not perfect, Morrison said. We've done terrible things to each other throughout our history. But we learned that diversity makes us stronger, that different ideas and perspectives help us grow. That's why we explore instead of conquer. But you have the power to conquer, Mira pointed out. Your weapons are far superior to ours. You could take Keltharian worlds if you chose to. We could, Morrison admitted. But why would we want to? What would we gain from ruling over people who didn't want us there? It would just create resentment and rebellion. We'd spend all our time and resources forcing others to obey us instead of exploring and learning. Mira was quiet for a moment. That's what the Empire does. Spend resources maintaining control. I never thought about it that way before. The real negotiations began in the second week. They spread a holographic star chart between them, showing both Keltharian and human territory. The border between them was the challenge. Both sides claimed certain systems. Both sides had interests they wanted protected. This system here, Mira said, pointing to a cluster of stars. The Empire has mining operations there. They've been running for 50 years. We need access to those resources. Morrison studied the location. That system is only 15 light-years from New Galveston. Humans see it as within our sphere of influence, but I understand your concern about existing operations. He thought for a moment. What if we established a joint economic zone? Both sides could operate in that system under agreed rules. You keep your minds, we get to explore the outer planets. Joint operation? Mira looked uncertain. The Empire has never shared territory before. Maybe that's part of the problem, Morrison suggested gently. Maybe it's time to try something new. They worked through dozens of disputed areas this way, finding compromises, suggesting creative solutions. Sometimes they argued. Mira could be stubborn when she believed the Empire was being treated unfairly. Morrison pushed back when human interests were threatened, but they both kept talking, kept trying to find middle ground. During a break one evening, they stood together looking out the station's observation window at the stars. Mira spoke softly. Captain Morrison, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you destroyed those Keltharian ships, what did you feel? Morrison was quiet for a long time. Regret, sadness. I kept thinking about all those people who died because their leaders gave them bad orders. They were just doing their jobs, following commands. They probably had families waiting for them. And I killed them because I had to protect my ship and crew. You could have run, Mira said. Your ship is fast enough. Maybe, but what kind of message would that send? That humans flee when challenged? That we can be pushed around? I defended us because I had to, but I didn't enjoy it. Mira nodded slowly. Grand Admiral Zek is in a hospital now. He can barely function. The defeat broke something in him. Before this, he was so confident, so sure of Imperial superiority. Now he knows differently and he cannot accept it. I'm sorry, Morrison said and meant it. Don't be. He needed to learn. We all did. Mira turned to face him. Captain Morrison, I came here believing this would be impossible. That our two civilizations were too different. That peace couldn't work. But talking with you these past days, I'm starting to think maybe it can. Morrison smiled. I think so too. We're different, but that's okay. We don't have to be the same to respect each other. The negotiations took another month. They hammered out borders, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. They established protocols for future contact and rules for handling disputes. Both sides had to compromise. Both sides had to give up things they wanted. But slowly, a framework emerged. The final agreement was comprehensive. Human and Keltharian territory would be clearly defined with buffer zones between them. Neither side would enter the other's space without permission. They would establish embassies for official communication. Trade would be encouraged but regulated. And most importantly, they agreed to share scientific knowledge in specific areas that would benefit both civilizations without compromising security. Morrison and Mira presented their proposal to their respective governments. The response was mixed. On both sides, there were those who wanted more, who felt their civilization had given up too much. But there were also many who supported the agreement, who recognized that peace was better than continued conflict. President Matthews approved the treaty with Earth's governing council backing him. It's not perfect, he told Morrison during their final communication. But it's good enough. You did well, Captain. Emperor Thrain faced more resistance. Several governors and military leaders opposed the treaty, calling it surrender. But Thrain stood firm. This is not surrender, he told his council. This is survival. This is recognizing that the galaxy is larger and more complex than we imagined. We can adapt or we can die clinging to old ideas. I choose adaptation. The treaty was signed on the neutral station. Morrison and Mira stood together as representatives of their civilizations, each signing the document that would govern relations between their peoples. The ceremony was broadcast across both human and Keltharian space. This is a new beginning, Mira said during her speech. For 3,000 years, the Keltharian Empire believed it stood alone at the pinnacle of civilization. We were wrong, and that truth was painful to accept. But from that pain comes opportunity. We now have partners, not subjects. Equals, not inferiors. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Morrison spoke more simply. Humans came to the stars looking for knowledge and new friends. We found both. The road here was hard, and many died before we reached this point. We honor their sacrifice by making this peace last. To the Keltharian people, we offer our hand in friendship. To our own people, we promise continued exploration and growth. The universe is vast and there is room for all of us. Scholar Primus Yell watched the ceremony from the Imperial Palace. She was old and tired, but she smiled. Later, she would be tasked with updating the Imperial archives. Under the entry for humanity, she wrote carefully, "Humanity is a species that values freedom above submission, innovation above tradition, and peace above conquest, but possesses the power to enforce all three. They are not in our records because they were never meant to be beneath us. They are beside us. This is the lesson the Empire must learn, that greatness comes not from dominion over others but from respect among equals. May this wisdom guide us as we enter a new age." On Earth, in the records of the Diplomatic Corps, a similar entry was made about the Keltharians, an ancient empire learning to be part of a community rather than ruler of it. This transition will not be easy for them, but it is necessary. We must be patient and fair, remembering that we too once believed ourselves the center of the universe. Together, both our civilizations can grow beyond what either could.